Now, what a way to kickstart 2026 as James Mellor kindly joins us today on Coaster Conversations. I appreciate you agreeing to have this chat with me, James, and Happy New Year's to you.
Yeah, happy New Year to you. And no, it's an absolute pleasure. I love speaking to people like yourself. It's an industry that I absolutely love myself. So no, pleasure to be here. And thank you for asking me.
No problem at all. Now, some people go out and party for New Year's, some people stay in and watch TV, but some people go and acquire a theme park. So, first and foremost, congratulations on the acquisition of Lightwater Valley. I mean, I hear it holds some special memories for you, so I can imagine it's quite a surreal moment to say that you are now the official owner.
It is very surreal. I mean, it was something we've been looking at, obviously, prior to Christmas. But yeah, it is very surreal, really, because we've not really had much time there. It all happened quite quick. The handover has happened. I'm actually in Lightwater Valley tomorrow myself, again, to sit down with the team and start trying to plan out for the season. We're into middle of January already. We open at the end of March. So it's very, very difficult to understand the runnings of the park, the workings, how things were previously done under the previous owners. So there's quite a lot that I need to try and learn and get around. And to be honest, I think it's one thing that probably a lot of visitors, guests don't quite appreciate, that you don't just walk in and say, oh, we're going to have a new roller coaster and put it there. So much to try and understand in the first place to make sure things are running smoothly, efficiently. And getting ready for the new season. So there's a lot to do.
Yeah, I can imagine it's like walking up to a very tall mountain, and even though it was a long way to go, you still are going to enjoy the climb. You're going to enjoy each step of the way.
Do you know what? Very true. And I think I learned this a lot with the whole of our life being around rides, but especially when we bought Fantasy Island as well back in 2016, is that it's a very tall mountain, but you'll never get to the top.
Yeah, there's
It's
always
always an
more, isn't
uphill
there?
climb. There's always something. There's always something else. And once you get so far, the ride that you painted 5 years ago needs repainting again.
Yeah.
You revitalize. You're moving on. So yeah, it's a constant uphill. Luckily, it's a good hill that I'm looking forward to climbing.
Yeah, and am I right in saying it's not the first time that you've looked at purchasing Lightwater Valley?
No, absolutely. I used to go to the park with my auntie. So my dad's sister actually lives in Sheffield. So when we were young kids, they got on very well with John Armitage and the family that was back in the park many years ago. So I used to go there as a small child, and I remember the water ride, Toad. I think it was called Toad in the Hole in the end. So yeah, I remember the Ultimate. Obviously, who doesn't remember the Ultimate? I think I actually got a tear in my eye, let's say, when they took the ride out, and I was screaming at my social media saying, "What the hell are you doing?" So yeah, I've read many comments now where people said if Mellors had it before, they wouldn't have got rid of it. Very true. We'd have had to have found a way to keep part of history. However, it's gone. We have to move on. And what that probably does is allow us to look at alternative uses and alternative plans. The problem is sometimes you can cling to history too much. So I think the great thing is now what we've got is a clean slate, and it's something to try and put our own mark on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just rewinding the clock back a little bit for those who don't understand the full process, could you briefly explain of how it came to be up into the acquisition deal being done, and the ins and outs of that sort of process from a sort of an acquisition point of view?
Well, we had viewed the park again. I know you mentioned a moment ago back in 2016, so that was for sale at the same time as Fantasy Island back then. So we were very aware of the park and already understanding. So once we saw it for sale, and obviously Rightmove was like, "Hey, let's buy a roller coaster." No, let's buy the full park. So yeah, it was quite a timely consuming thing, but it had to move quite quickly. So one of the reasons, obviously, again, was trying to get the right purchase price. Like anybody buying a business, you have to make sure that it's financially viable. So we had to look at the assets that's there, try and get a full valuation, the profit margins, what the park was already making, but then also try and understand where we feel we could turn this park around. So it's a lot of financial work. So yeah, Christmas was taken up looking into spreadsheets, Excel sheets, and trying to look at ways that we can change the business. But to be fair, Brighter Peer Group have been very accommodating, very helpful. They've told us even ways that they thought things could change. The team at Lightwater Valley, I did meet with some of the key members of the team quite early on. And again, I think that's one of the things that I loved about Fantasy Island when we bought it and Lightwater Valley is the fact that the team that are there don't just work there. They all live and breathe these places. Um, and I think you'll notice that with many different theme parks that you go around, with a lot of the smaller parks especially, that the team members, the place runs through their veins. It isn't just a job to people. And that's how I am. That's how I am with my parks. It's quite weird saying parks now, actually. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I bet.
it's a passion. It's not just a job. It's not just a business. But at the same time, enthusiasts especially have to remember that it is a business. We can't just go out and rebuild Ultimate, but let's make it bigger. Do this, do that, do the other. So we have to run it with a passion, same as any enthusiast. The bits that we really want to see happen, but some of it can't happen overnight. So anyway, I hope I've answered your question.
You have indeed. I mean, just going back to what you were saying there about the smaller parks, kind of like with that sort of, it's more of a family. I mean, I've spent about 2 years now working with my own local fun fair, and the fact they actually invited me to be a part of them was something that I found quite special because it's normally a very tight-knit sort of little family group, and sort of like outsiders not welcome almost, but it's kind of a very sort of exclusive sort of community. But I love how you mentioned how the smaller parks definitely have that vibe, and I think that's the one thing I can compare it most to as the Funfair space, obviously, which you know a lot about yourself.
Well, exactly. That's our background. We're from the Funfair side. We had the small community within the showmen, the moving around, but also the enthusiasts. We used to get the enthusiasts to come to see the lorries, people that was just interested in the transport.
Hmm.
Then you'd get the enthusiasts that was interested in the rides. And it was always nice to sit and talk to the enthusiasts. I always remember many years ago at Goose Fair, different enthusiasts that used to go on the European continental touring, and they used to come and to me, and to be fair, there was a great source of information. They'd tell me what rides are doing well, what they need, and even now, I do go on social media quite a lot, and I do look at a lot of comments, what people say. I don't take them all on board because, as I said earlier, some people it's quite easy to sit there and say you should do this, should do that. But at the same time, the one thing I love about the enthusiasts is their passion. People that are doing this, like yourself and people, you go around the parks, you actually enjoy it, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. So I love hearing feedback from other people within the industry to try and say, actually, you know what, that's a really good point. And I do get that quite often. But yeah, I've always got time for people that enjoy the business because it's something that I love as well. I'm an enthusiast at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that bodes well for you taking over Lightwater Valley. Because I imagine as soon as the deal has been done, there's ideas that kind of spark into your mind instantly on like how to expand, and whilst change won't happen overnight, is there something that you kind of looked at straight away and thought that's an area that I want to focus on the second it became mine?
I think, again, because we've looked at the park so many times over the years, we've kind of always had visions, thoughts of what you would do. But we've owned in Fantasy Island since 2016. We've now had 10 years at Fantasy Island. I realised that things didn't move quite as quick as we originally wanted them to. And again, a lot of that is because you've got to increase the footfall, your demographics. It's what you want to visit the park. We know that we can't just go and stick in massive attractions, put the price up to whatever price, because then all of a sudden you alienate your customer that's already there. So we have to try and work with the people that's already there and make sure that they are happy that if the price increases, that it's increasing because they are getting better value. So yeah, I have plans, and I think as soon as I walked in Lightwater, it wasn't like Fantasy where I had to think about it. Literally ideas were flying. And that was one of the things I like about the place. There's so much usable space that we don't have to work like Fantasy Island where we're in a compact footprint.
Yeah.
Lightwater Valley is a completely different package to Fantasy Island. I know that Lightwater Valley is a theme park, and that's what I want it to be. Fantasy Island is an amusement park. It's an amusement park with a theme. So they're two totally different packages. Getting Fantasy Island, Lightwater Valley, I should say, to that full-on theme park where we want isn't going to happen overnight. So people need to bear with us. But yeah, we have a target in mind.
Okay, fantastic. Now, with Fancy Island, I mean, the pyramid for me is easily the best themed indoor space in the entire country, no question, no doubt. And I love the model of Fantasy Island. How indoors is the permanent, all year round weather rides, and then outdoor is the complimentary Funfair rides that kind of accompany that. Now, with reading that Spinning Racer is going to be heading towards Lightwater Valley. Is that the model that Lightwater Valley is going to adopt for the short term, with the Funfair rides from yourselves complementing until the more permanent things come into place?
I think the answer is yes, it has to. We can't afford to just go out and buy some of the big roller coasters and things that we'd like to see in the park immediately. We have to get the facilities in the park, like power supplies and everything else, increased. So there's quite a lot of work to do around things like that, and that's what people don't necessarily see. However, there is no reason why you can't have a portable ride that looks like a permanent ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Many of the rides, you've got to remember Corkscrew that originally went into Alton Towers had a base frame. It was a portable ride. So there's many, many rides out there. Bling that was at Blackpool, again, had a base frame. So they may be portable in the fact that you can move them, but it doesn't mean that they have to have the flashing lights and be a fairground ride. So I think that's what people have to try and bear in mind and understand, that there's no reason why it can't work. And yes, I would love to then, given time, go out and get something completely new, completely fresh. But that's not going to happen overnight.
Of course not. And I was speaking to my friend Joey about this the other day because Lightwater Valley kind of removed the thrill rides like Eagle's Claw, Raptor Attack, just to name two, and they kind of headed into this family-friendly direction. And it felt as though the park didn't really give its original target audience much credit, as like kids nowadays are much braver than I think we give them credit for at times. So with them taking those rides away, it kind of felt like they were shooting themselves in the foot at one point. I mean, could you shed more light on the statement that you made in the acquisition, that you said you were going to widen the experience to guests of all ages?
Well, I think that's the point. The previous management decided that they wanted to try and go towards more of a younger clientele and stick to that age range. We want to try and make sure that when a sibling comes along that's 6, 7 years old, that their older brother, sister at 14, 17, 18 years old can also still enjoy the day. So yeah, that's the idea really, is that we're going to widen the whole attraction base as much as we can so that it appeals to everybody. You can go to Disney World and not necessarily there's thrill rides that take you upside down, but everybody enjoys it.
Yeah.
However, there's plenty of other parks that do both. So without going too much, but yeah, the idea is that we want to try and entertain the whole family.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, like over the last few years, the branding's definitely been a little wishy-washy to say the least. But from your standpoint going forward, how would you want guests to interpret or perceive Lightwater Valley from the outside?
Difficult to say at the moment, but I think people still want to view it. I mean, everybody's social media you talk about again, but Paulton's Park is probably the ideal model. Obviously, Peppa Pig World changed them completely. But yeah, the rides, what they have down there and everything is fantastic. I'd just like people to look at Lightwater Valley as being what it's always been in a way, which is in a beautiful setting. It's got the countryside, it's got fantastic grounds, it's got the lake, it's got everything around it to make a nice family day out. All it's missing is the attractions and entertainments. And that's what we want to try and bring back into it.
Now, without mentioning any names, James, there's a few companies out there that have acquired parks who have found themselves on the wrong side of bad planning and maybe spreading themselves too thin at times across investment portfolio. I mean, Mellors is growing at such a rapid rate. Now, what is the core philosophy that you undertake to make sure that each acquisition is catered for and invested into equally across the portfolio so you get a good solid return on investment? That's a
I
mouthful,
think a
wasn't
lot of
it?
it was. I think well, it's a difficult one because obviously every business doesn't set out for things to go wrong. Everybody sets out for things to go wrong. So every time you might make a new acquisition, a new purchase, now whether that be an individual ride, converting out an F&B unit, or buying a full theme park, every time you'd make a purchase, you've got to try and worry, am I making the right decision? Everything's just so expensive now. I think the thing is, we came from a small fairground background. So my brother and I have worked on the rides. We still work within the rides. So one of the things we've got, I feel, is that we're not corporate. We've got that good understanding of what happens out on the ground. We're able to understand the rides, what rides will work, what rides won't work, because we've been there, we've done it. We know that some rides work very well at Goose Fair, yet you went the week afterwards to Hull Fair, which is only 100 miles away, and it didn't work the same. But yet you could take another ride to Newcastle, and that ride would be more popular than it was in Hull or Goose Fair. So it's just about trying to understand the different clientele and the demographics. And I'd like to think we do understand that. So yeah, hopefully we've got it right.
Fingers crossed. Now, with you just touching on there, the upbringing of being around Funfair rides to owning them, then supplying them to places like Global Village in Dubai, and the work that you were doing over in Saudi Arabia on current and future products. Do you ever just get a moment just to stop and take it all in and kind of, just appreciate from humble beginnings to where you are now? Or is it kind of like a surreal moment? How does that kind of strike you right now, being a multiple park owner, not just one?
Um, no, it's quite strange. I don't think I think I mentioned on different podcasts and things before that my brother and I never really set out with any target.
Yeah.
I think we always wanted to own a park. I think that was always something because when you've got rides, that's kind of like the ultimate. But then once we bought the park, it's just like, right, okay, let's get work done now. It's the next thing. So yeah, no, I think sometimes I do appreciate where we've got to in life, but then other times I just think there's still plenty more work to do. So yeah, difficult question, difficult to answer.
Yeah, I was going to say I was going to lead it into another idea because how you worded that it seemed like a very sort of driven mindset. Is that something that you've adopted over the years that just keeps you going and keeps you motivated? Like, what is it that just allows you to keep striving for more?
It is that, but I think I hit on it earlier when I said the word passion.
Yeah,
It's a job that I wake up and want to go and do. Now, a lot of the time I don't like to do is sit in the office. I want to get out on the rides, physical. And a lot of my staff will tell you the same thing. When they see me on sites, I tend to be walking around, looking at things, listening. What can we change? What can we do? And that's the element I think that we've always had is that passion about our business. And I've always said, and it's a common thing, if you enjoy doing your work, you never do a day's work in your life. And that's the thing with us. We enjoy it. And I think when we did the 4 or 5 rides originally traveling, it was like, okay, what's next? Obviously, then we went on to Global Village. Then we bought Fantasy Island. And then after Fantasy Island, we start getting it to a level which Fantasy Island will never get to the end of. Like I go back to the beginning of the interview. But it was like, okay, what next? So again, that's where Lightwater Valley kind of drops into. So I think we enjoy being busy. We enjoy the different aspects of the rides. And one of the things I'm really again excited about with Lightwater Valley is, as I said, it's very different to Fantasy Island. So Lightwater Valley, Fantasy Island are 2 different packages, and I'm really looking forward to the fact that they're both the same industry, they both got the same assets. It's all about rides, it's about people's entertainment, enjoyment, but done differently.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what's also giving me extra excitement about this.
Yeah, Fancy Island is one of them parks like I touched on previously. Like indoor, the pyramid space for me is very theme park. It's very themed, it's very immersive, and outdoors, it's very amusement park. You've kind of got that best of both worlds. But with Lightwater Valley kind of leaning heavily into the theme park aspect, would the theming team from Fancy Island be taking a nice little trip to Lightwater Valley anytime soon? Is that going to be a priority moving forward?
Um, they're there tomorrow.
There we go.
So yes, we're working on both. Again, the team at Lightwater Valley are very good at the theming and things anyway. But you talk about the indoor, again, the difference is they're 2 totally different packages.
Yeah,
When people are in Ingermeld, Skegness, Mablethorpe, wherever they may be, they're on holiday a lot of the time. You don't get too many day visitors go up there, even though we'd love to try and get more day trippers, because I think now we have that package, we have the offer. Whereas Lightwater Valley at the moment is more of a day trip. People go to Lightwater Valley for a day out.
yeah,
It's the same as going to Alton Towers. You go for a day out, you may go for 2 days if you stay over, but it tends to be a day. People that are going to Skegness and Inglefield are going for a holiday. Now, the difference is when you're up there and we get this glorious wet weather, we have to be able to entertain the people indoors.
yeah,
However, Lightwater Valley, if somebody woke up and looked at their weather app, which everybody seems to do now, and unfortunately, apps might say 100% rain, but it might mean it's a drizzle for 20 minutes, but it's still 100% rain. It puts people off. So I don't think a massive indoor area would necessarily work the same as it does at Fantasy Island, because again, it's a different clientele. It's a completely different package. Does it need more indoor attractions? Because when it rains, yes, it does. because when you're on site and it's raining, everybody doesn't want to just be stood outside getting wet through, hiding under trees. But again, things won't happen overnight. We need to give more attractions and something bigger. Why do people want to revisit Lightwater Valley?
Yeah, I love how you just touched base ever so slightly there. I'm a big champion of the dark ride cause, James. I don't think we've got enough of them in the UK. I think our climate's absolutely perfect for them. And without you needing to say anything else, just the possibility that that could be something in the future is something that I know people would love to hear now. What we mentioned earlier on in the interview about a certain roller coaster that was taken away from the park. There's going to be enthusiasts watching this interview now screaming, saying, "Oh, bring it back," like you mentioned earlier. And it's not the question that I want to ask you, but the ultimate was a ride that put Lightwater Valley on the map. Now, with you saying that for the short term, Funfair rides and traveling rides would be used to complement the theme park in the short term. Could Lightwater Valley potentially have a statement ride again in the future? Not necessarily ultimate, just something that really puts it on the map, maybe as a part of the logo, just something that says, yes, we are Lightwater Valley, this is what we've got.
That's definitely the intentions. That's the way we would like to go. Again, it's about making the park. If we was to put in a roller coaster now, you could be, £10 million,
Yeah.
maybe more, dependent on the coaster. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of return and getting that money back. If we was just to put one big roller coaster into Lightwater Valley now, it probably wouldn't get its return good enough.
Mhm.
Because yes, people may come, but they'll ride one roller coaster and they'll say, now what do we do?
Exactly. You have to build up
And
that
then they wouldn't
demographic.
return the year afterwards and the year afterwards. And so that's why I say we have to try and build up. We have to try and make it so actually, you know what? It is a great day out for people to come to already. Then when you add in that £10 million roller coaster, well, actually, it's a fantastic day out. And we're happy to visit 2 or 3 times a year and stay longer. Then the ride will be able to make its return. So it's about stepping stones to get to where we need to get to. So if there's a question, is that the plan? Absolutely, of course. That's what I'd love to do. I'd love to put something big, something special in there. But it's getting to that stage in the first place.
I think that's more than I need to know to whet the appetite for everybody who's watching this particular piece today. James, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. Thank you for sharing your insight and industry expertise on this very exciting future for Mellors. I'm excited for you. I hope we can grab a beer one day and just chat some more about it behind the scenes. But thank you for your time today and all the best to you.
Thank you. Hopefully my marketing team won't strangle me now for spilling too many beans.